everyone.
See, told you I was coming.
My name is Flo, President of the Arlington Park Neighborhood Association. I'm just the complaint department. I've lived in the neighborhood for 25 years and the city for 35 years. I love our city. I literally wrote a little speech so I wouldn't forget any of the details for the forum this evening. So, hello friends and neighbors. The Arlington Park Neighborhood Association welcomes you to our 2024 City Commission Candidate Forum for D2 and D3. I would first like to recognize, before we go any further, our Vice Mayor, Jen Ahern-Koch. Kelly Brown, CCNA District 1 Director. And Sequoia Felton, who is running for District 1 City Commission. The candidates for District 2 are Liz Albert and Ron Cashner. Our District 2 boundaries for the neighborhood are, just so everyone understands, our neighborhood is divided. District 2, the south side of Hyde Park Street to Weber Street and the city limits. It's a weird, funky boundary because along the way people had to decide whether they wanted to come into the city, so it's kind of a zigzag. So District 2 is the south side of Hyde Park Street and Weber Street, US 41 to Tuttle Avenue. The candidates for District 3 are Eric Arroyo and Kathy Kelly Ulrich. The District 3 boundaries for our neighborhood are from Bay Vista to north side of Hyde Park Street, US 41 to Tuttle. So we're kind of divided this way in the neighborhood for D3 and D2. Board member, Bonnie Curtin. She will be our moderator this evening, and Rob Grant will be our timer. We will pose a question, and you will have 90 seconds to answer. We have we have 8 questions if we can get through them, 6 to 8, but we have 8 questions. If there's time, we will ask questions from the audience. You have 90 seconds to answer the question. Rebuttal is allowed during your 90 seconds or during your 90-second wrap-up. So we are not allowing time for rebuttal. You can rebut in your 90 seconds or at the very end. Rob will hold up a 15-second card to let you know to finish up your answer. And a stop time is up card when your time is done. Chris or Michael, is someone at the desk? Yeah, can you just get a signature? Sorry. So 15-second card and your time is up. Please respect the person who has the mic. Please no side talk from the audience. Please do not heckle or criticize. The first person to answer each question will be changed on a random basis. We'll kind of go down the line. Please silence your phones so we don't have any interruptions. And thank you very much for joining us, my neighbors. Let's have a great forum and get to know our candidates.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes. All right, before I start, I just wanted to point out that these questions were submitted by your neighbors. And hopefully we'll get some insightful answers from our candidates. So my first question for Liz.
Well, it's for everybody, but Liz is
I'm sorry. Liz, we're going to start with you. The speeding issues we have in Arlington Park are not caused by our neighbors. It's due to cut-through traffic for the high school, hospital, and visitors to our wonderful park. How would you help address the speeding issues in our neighborhood?
Is that better? Okay.
best ways, and I know it isn't just all cut-through traffic, it's also people in the neighborhood. But one of the best ways is if you qualify for speed bumps, or if you do traffic calming. There are ways that you can design the roads so that speeding is curved. If you have narrower lanes, believe it or not, if there's cars parked on the side of the street and people don't have this just wide swath of roadway, it slows them down. So I think there are a lot of traffic calming measures that can take place. I don't think you can stop people from cutting through because they are public streets and people are allowed to drive on public streets, but you can design the streets in such a way that that they will slow down when they go through the neighborhood.
Thank you. Ron?
Good evening. So, it's hard to stop cut-through traffic, and I've been in several meetings in Arlington Park, and it's an ongoing issue. What the City Commission could do is work on better traffic calming. You know, some of the devices that Liz was talking about. The problem with trying to do traffic calming is what qualifies for the city to apply some type of traffic calming devices. Either narrow streets, speed bumps, those speed signs. There's a point system called the warrant system. And I don't think it is appropriate to the dangerous intersections that are out there. But the cuts through traffic has been an ongoing problem. One of the things that the downtown plan actually does is it takes a look at all the roads in downtown and tries to designate some more as through traffic and some that's more designed or prioritized for pedestrians and bicycles. So it's one thing that the commission, oh, it's the wrong side. So one thing that the commission, no, it's fine. The one thing that the commission could do is implement a similar plan to Arlington Park, the neighborhood, trying to specify which streets are more through traffic and which streets are local.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Welcome everyone, my name is Eric Arroyo, and thank you for coming in the middle of a weather advisory when you could be preparing for this rain event. You know, you may not believe this, but none of us up here are actually traffic engineers. And we have some experts in the city that guide us in this. And the problem, I think, the disconnect is that you will have a public hearing, they'll come and tell you, hey, we're trying to deal with this speeding problem. The actual speed is different from the posted speed, and there's a deviation. And the people come and they say, you know what, you should put speed bumps. You should put a stoplight, you should put a whatever it is. And it's kind of like an insult to these individuals who studied their whole lives to be traffic engineers. They're like, speed bumps, why didn't I think about that? Then, they know, in their expertise, know that there's like 5 different things you have to do before speed bumps to mitigate traffic. So then, because of this interaction, the public isn't happy. They're not happy because they feel like that, you know, that they're not delivering what the public wanted, and it creates this issue. The reality is, I heard this traffic engineer tell me that if the actual speed that people are driving exceeds the posted speed, it's because the street is designed incorrectly, and there are things that we can do. But I think the answer is we need to rely on our experts and not be the end-all be-all, because we don't have all the answers, but we have experts.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yep, it's always nice going last because other people cover most of the information. But I would say we should look at the warrant, see if there's any way to change that for the betterment of the community as well as the traffic engineers who are the experts. Bump outs, you know, that things that keep a street from being straight. And even line markers and parking spaces on the side of the street, or bump outs where people have to slow down. I know one community that published in their newsletter on a regular basis, it's up to us. We have to slow down. So it's not just cut through, but neighbors as well. They went so far as to make some little signs and stick them randomly around. Slow down, it's up to us. And they would award people from the neighborhood who were going the speed limit, award them by mentioning their name or their their license plate in the newsletter. Anyway, there are things we can do if we work together with the engineers and the community and the warrant and the police.
Thank you. Our second question will start with Ron. Our second question will start with Ron. Our neighborhood floods even during regular rain events. How will you work with the county to improve our infrastructure?
Well,
I turned it off, Ron.
It's bad to go first. The city commission can do a couple of things. Yes, the county does handle or maintain our stormwater system. The city owns the actual equipment. But in the last storm, in Debbie, what the city did is it spent additional resources to clean the streets on St. Arnon's, to make sure that there's no debris on the streets. So when there was a major flood during Debbie, St. Armand's actually performed much better than everyone thought. So the city can spend resources in supplementing what the county did. But you have the similar problem that several neighborhoods have. You know, Indian Beach, Sapphire Shores constantly has flooding problems on the street. And the county has come up with something known as LID, which is low impact design. And what that does is, rather than having a lot of main aqueducts, a lot of main ditches where all the water goes, and if there's a blockage, all of a sudden the street floods, what it does is distribute it throughout the neighborhood. So rather than having one point of failure, you can actually have a more robust system. So you don't get that one street or several streets that a single blockage kills.
Thank you, Ron. Eric?
The answer is the power of the pulpit. Years ago, when I was the ceremonial mayor of Sarasota, we had a hurricane event, and people work. There's always emergencies when we have these hurricanes, and I talked to FPL, and there's nothing that we have the power to do with FPL or with the county who manages our stormwater. But we have the power of the pulpit as elected officials. So what we need to do is actually just stay on them. With FPL, I said I would like an update every three hours, please. I mean, what are we doing? And it ended up working. I went on MSNBC and I said, we need to underground these power lines. FPL needs to don't wait till the next time, do it now. Within 45 minutes, they called me, the CEO of FPL wants to meet with you. And that's how I met him, because I was complaining on TV because of that voice. With the county, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to be able to follow up, because we have very little power. It's either that or terminate the agreement that we have, and we do it ourselves, and we don't even know what the cost will be. But they do listen. They do listen, and if we stay on top of them and we ask for updates, we have this new app. It's called Click to Fix, and you take a picture of a pothole or whatever it is, it'll automatically generate a work order. You don't need to call, see anybody, and then they'll email you when it's done. It's an app that we developed locally at the city of Sarasota, no charge.
Thank you, Eric.
I was canvassing in that area along Bay Vista and Conrad and Pattinson 2 days before Debbie. And I went back after Debbie, and it just broke my heart what I saw. I thought about that today after I read the update that Chris Golia, who's the president of St. Armand's Neighborhood Association, sent to his residents, updating them. The county and the city are doing this before the storm so we don't flood, and all those preventative measures they took last time so St. Armand's didn't flood. After I read that, I sent an email to Deputy City Manager Pat Robinson. I said, hey, don't neglect the part of District 3 that flooded in Debbie. We need our drains cleaned and things done just like you're doing on St. Armand's. We need that too. So I'll work with whoever it takes to keep District 3 from flooding like it did in Debbie. Whoever it takes, I'll do it.
Thank you, Kathy. Liz?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question, because I know it is an ongoing problem in the city, especially when we live in a place where once the ground gets saturated, as it is now, and we're looking at more rain coming down, that there is going to be some flooding on the streets. But it's a matter of, as everybody has said, it's a matter of working with the county to make sure the storm drains are operating like they should, that they're cleaned out, that they're a large enough capacity to handle what's going on. Normally, they've been the right size to handle storms that we've had, but now we're getting more frequent storms, we're getting a lot more rain. So, I think they need to look at where they possibly need to upgrade the storm drains. And so I think working with the county is the key to make sure it happens. And we've been doing that as Kathy said. They really got on doing some work out on St. Armand's because previously the stores there were flooded, so they had to do something, and I think they need to do the same thing in the neighborhoods that are having problems.
Thank you, Liz. In Arlington Park, the zero lot line homes are choking out the charm of our neighborhood. How do you feel about adjusting design standards for better compatibility? Eric, we'll start with you.
We need to have better compatibility standards. But also we need to balance out things that hurt the little person, right? The small lot owner, if they have to do a setback of, 10 feet, maybe the person that bought like 10 lots does not have to worry about that, but that small person that owns one lot, that hurts them. So sometimes compatibility is not just based on setbacks, which seems to be the go-to answer that a lot of people give. Sometimes it involves, respecting property rights, understanding that you can't, we can't regulate every aspect of what we have. When communities are built, there's usually a covenant that runs with the land, and that is how you create communities. You have restrictions, you have to have the setbacks, you have to have, that's why you have, if you go to Greece, you go to Mykonos, you go to Santorini, they have these covenants that run with the land. They say, you can't paint those houses. That's why they're all white. And so, many of us don't have that. And so, if you are exercising your property rights, and there are no covenants, and you are not really impeding on anyone else's rights, you should be able to do what you want with your property. And so, that's really the answer here. And we seem to want to pass new rules that somehow will affect people retroactively. That's not the case, and I see it here and I understand things are getting torn down and new, more modern things are being built, but is it for us to answer that?
Kathy? Thank you, Eric. Kathy.
Yes. So when you asked that question, I thought of a woman I was talking to the other day, lives in Arlington Park. We started talking about lot line to lot line, and she said, this is not a quote, but my words, not hers. Those are all rat houses that are getting torn down. I'm all for the lot line to lot line. Really. Anyway, I don't think they're all rat houses. I do know that I've spent quite a bit of time in your neighborhood recently, and it is changing in its character. There are things we can do to incentivize keeping older houses, or some communities have, if you tear down a house, the rebuild has to be on the footprint of the old one. Now, some of the older houses here are really small, so people might not want to build on the footprint. But there's something we can do, I don't know what it is, so that everybody isn't building right up to their neighbor. Those white fences that are really proliferating in your neighborhood, they attach to the next house. And it's definitely changing the character. We'll do something, I don't know what.
Thank you. Liz?
Okay, thank you. I don't think, do you have 0 lot line in Arlington Park? I think it's a minimum setback, right?
6 feet.
Yeah, you do have some setback. It feels like 0 lot line maybe, but it's not totally. One of the things that you have to remember is if somebody is building according to the zoning rules, they're allowed to do that. Whether we like the rule or we don't like the rule, it would be like if you decided to buy a lot and you said, I want to build a house based on what the zoning says in this neighborhood, and the government came in and said, well, we've decided you can't do that, so now you have to do something else. Well, then the government then has to compensate you for the property rights they've taken away. So it sounds like a simple thing that let's then change the zoning, but without buy-in from the neighborhood to do that, then the city would have to compensate them for the zoning. And I see somebody saying, looking like that's not true. It is true. It's property rights people have in the property they've bought that the government can't tell them they can't use their property. Imagine if it was your home that you wanted to build, and we came in and said, you can't do it because we've decided your home's not compatible.
Thank you, Liz. Ron?
Thank you. So there's a couple of things. My time is up. There's a couple of things that the commission can do. And it's more related to when zoning changes are requested. And Arlington Park has dealt with big construction projects when a developer comes in and asks for a rezone. And that's a different question. And that's one where I believe that, yes, the existing owner and the existing developer has property rights, but so does everyone in the surrounding areas. And if the commission is amiable to changing zoning, to changing your neighbor's property rights, then you don't have a reliable, a consistent environment that you put your life savings into. So it's the rezoning that the commission can have a big effect. The other thing that you've noticed time and time again is when the construction comes, many times it's clear cut. And, I think the city could do better at trying to incentivize keeping historic trees, because no matter how pretty that house is built, if you cut down a 100-year-old tree, there's no amount of money that lets you rebuild a 100-year-old tree.
Thank you, Ron. Would you support incentives to encourage the conversion of short-term vacation rentals back to annual rentals to If yes, what incentives do you suggest? If no, why not? And we'll start with Kathy.
Do I support
Do you
an
support
initiative that would change short-term rentals to long-term rentals?
back to annual rentals for the affordable housing?
Absolutely. I do support that. As I've been walking around your neighborhood and other neighborhoods in D3, people are irate about the impact of the short-term rentals. Now, it is true that our short-term rental ordinance is just in the process of getting short-term rentals on the mainland registered, and enforcement on the mainland will begin January 1. But incentivizing long-term rentals is really a good idea and directly related to affordable housing in our community. That made me think of people who were being priced out of their houses as well. If we had long-term rentals where we currently have short-term rentals, some people would be able to rent a house where they're not currently able to continue living under ownership. So did I answer that question?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Call for it.
Thank you. Liz?
I would certainly be in favor of providing incentives. What those incentives should be, maybe smarter minds than me could figure that out as to what would create that incentive for people to be able to do it. But I think it makes sense, because of state statute, we can't prohibit vacation rentals. But what we do have in the city is at least a 7-day minimum stay. And if we fool around with our ordinance too much, then that's grandfathered in. Then we could lose that 7-day minimum stay. So we've been very careful to make sure that we can keep that on the books at least, that we can regulate them that much. And we did extend the vacation house, the hotel house ordinance throughout the city. They're supposed to get registered by October 1, and we will start regulation of them January 1, so that at least there is the ordinances for trash, parking, noise, all of those things, and that there's somebody that is available 24 hours a day to be called if there are violations of any of these code enforcement ordinances. So, we are doing what we can, but if we can figure out a way to get people to rent them out long term, I think that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Liz. Ron?
Thank you. So, it's true, we can't prohibit any rentals shorter or make them longer than 7 days right now. But incentivizing, we can most certainly do. And there's a discussion going on right now that's similar, related to ADUs, accessory dwelling units, where the idea is if you have an ADU that you rent to below market rates, so you're targeting the workforce, you're targeting the first responders, the workforce of the city, you can have lower impact fees. Maybe we can do something similar to rentals too, by incentivizing the property owner to rent their house at below market rates to try and keep them in. But we can also tie those incentives to longer term rentals. So it's not just, lower market value for a week. We could do lower market value for a year. But it's that type of creativity we have to do if we're going to tackle the workforce housing.
Thank you, Ron. Eric?
To answer your question, yes, I'm for incentives. I am against requirements. because we try to legislate our way past rules without knowing what the repercussions are going to be, because we think that these rules are going to have some sort of impact. And it usually turns into some other thing. For example, we passed a registration requirement in the barrier islands because there was an issue there with hotel houses. These big houses, 8 bedrooms with a pool in the middle. It was like a little mini resort. Commercial activity in a neighborhood. Big problem. We did that and had a registration requirement in the barrier islands. I voted against expanding it to every other house. Every other outside of the barrier islands in the city of Sarasota. Why? Because one, the registration requirement was supposed to have someone that you can reach 24 hours a day. It was had requirements for pool lighting and for all these requirements that just didn't exist before. And what it did is it created a hurdle for you to exercise your right to use your property for something that you have a right to do. The reality was that the problems that people were seeing was traffic, noise, people parking on the streets, there was noise, there was trash. The ordinance did not address any of those things. Easily could have been addressed by saying, you know what, trash pickup is on the side. You can't park, you can only park in the driveway. Something, but it didn't address any of these noise meters. It didn't address it, so.
Thank you. Years ago, the Commission considered creating a special parks district to improve and reinvest in our parks and open spaces. Would you support a special parks district? Would you support changing the zoning of the parks from G, governmental, POS, parks and open space, open green space?
Yeah, I think a lot of these are the same questions from the CCNA.
Yeah.
CCNA forum, but it's a different audience, yes.
Different audience.
Yeah, as far as a parks district, not only would I support it, I did support it. We tried to implement a parks district several years ago and needed a 5-0 vote on the city commission to make it happen, but we couldn't get 5 votes. They would have gotten my vote on that, and I'd like to see that come back now and see if we can't get 5-0 vote on the commission to make it happen, so that we have a dedicated amount of money that the Parks District has every year. We know what that's going to be, so we know what can be done. And in terms of rezoning the parks, I think that has to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. I think in some parks it may make sense, in other parks it may not. But overall, my position is that we do protect our parks. Since I've been on the commission, we've created a new pocket park in the Rosemary districts. We created the nature park at Bobby Jones. We created the park at the Bay and added a playground and splash pad at Bayfront Park. So I've been an advocate of parks and will continue to be so.
Thank you. Ron?
So, just that everybody knows that a taxing district is merely taking a bit of the ad valorem tax and dedicating it to the parks. You know, it's an accounting bit, but that just, you know, as Liz said, it gives a reliable source of funding for the parks. And of course, I'm in favor of that. But when it gets to the zoning of all of our parks, currently our parks are Zone G, which is the same zoning as the land under City Hall. So I think that that's just wrong. And that's what's leading to a lot of the advocacy for stopping the commercialization of our parks. And there's a way that the commission can put an end to that. Yes, we can rezone our parks to the correct zoning, but I would go one step beyond. I would create a land use specifically for the parks and make that the only zoning. A little bit wonky, but what that does is if the commission wanted to change that land use, that wanted to turn it from green space parkland to something else, it would require 4 commissioners rather than the standard 3. And so it would give added protection.
Thank you, Ron. Eric?
Over the last 4 years, our commission has conserved more green space than any other commission in history. 262 acres put in a conservation easement without a special fund that only goes to the parks. I have a problem with the fund, with having a special fund. And that is, if you ask our finance director, we have more special revenue funds, special purpose funds than any other city that she's ever looked at. We have a fund for demolition, we have a fund for this, and it all squeezes our general fund. Just because we don't have a separate bank account for managing parks does not mean they're going to get managed. They're not going to get managed. The reality is, imagine you had an emergency in your house and you couldn't afford your mortgage or your rent, but you're like, well, we have money there. It's like, no, that's the yogurt fund. We only use that for yogurt. We can't use that for rent. And that's what we're doing with all these funds. We're squeezing our main giant fund, which is our general fund in the city. And so I'm against setting the special district because of that. Parks will still be maintained. We have to just trust that because so many past commissions put restrictions on us now that we have a demolition fund, we have a tree fund with $500,000 in it that we can't use unless it's to replace a tree. Not to plant new trees, to replace a tree. And other commissions didn't trust us. We need to trust our future leaders to understand how the budgeting is going to work, because parks will be maintained.
Thank you, Eric. Ken?
Parks. As I walk around District 3, people are really concerned about our parks. Liz and Ron addressed zoning. I'd like to tell you, Mr. Cashton, all our parks are not zoned with one designation. Some of our parks are zoned single-family residential. So there's a little cleanup, at least, that we can do regarding zoning of our parks. I'm all for a parks district. I wonder where, if it's not in the parks district, but somewhere, we could include explicit restrictions and limitations on commercialization in our parks for private gain. People want that. Eric mentioned trust. People don't trust. That's why a parks district would be something that people would want, I believe.
Thank you, Kathy. With the change to the corridors, the parking lots will now be adjacent to the neighborhoods, creating quality of life issues with noise and lights from the cars 24/7. Would you bring the corridor ZTA back to discuss how we can work it better for the many neighborhoods this change affects? And we'll start with Ron.
So I was in strong opposition for the form factor that was placed on the corridors. I do not believe, and this is what the zoning says, 10 feet away from the curb, possibly 70 feet high, all along the corridors. So you're talking about all along the North Trail, all along the South Trail, Fruitville, 301. The commission will say, we follow new urbanism, that somehow by putting those buildings so close to 41, it's now going to be walkable. I cannot, it is unfathomable to think that that would be a pleasant walking experience. I would absolutely bring that back to fix the form factor, because it's just inappropriate. What you're doing is you're sprawling downtown, and downtown zoning was the basis of the corridors, along with, and hopefully this comes up, the expansion of administrative review, and all of those need to be fixed.
Thank you. I'm a fan of new urbanism. When you drive down Tamiami, you see these, a big parking lot and then a building all the way in the back. That's not new urbanism. It doesn't create walkability. If we want to have walkability, we need to have wide sidewalks, and we need to have buildings that face that are there up to the road, or not a parking lot. Also, we need to have the first floor needs to be commercial property, and then the rest can have residential. That's how you create, that's what I think the mistake we made in the Rosemary district, where there's just residential, a lot of residences, but no walkability. So we need to have places where you can get your amenities within walking distance, where there are things to see, and you're just not walking, miles, just seeing residences, the backs of people's houses. What we proposed and passed was it allows you to build different kinds of housing. You build it at different income levels, so people with different income types in the city who work different jobs can afford to live in these homes. It's a requirement if they take advantage of this incentive. In an ideal world, everybody would take advantage of this incentive, and then we would have, but the reality is it's not going to happen. And it's going to yield it's actually, the initiatives we've passed have already yielded over 600 units in the works that are going to be affordable for our community. So we're saying, and it also doesn't intrude on the rights of the neighborhoods.
Before you continue, Kathy, there's one part to this question that I'm not sure got addressed. Parking lots on the sides of our neighborhoods. We're talking about Tamiami, but the parking lots for these buildings are on East Avenue, or on sides that face our neighbors. How are we going to, does anybody oppose, or are you guys okay with that? Or is that something that will be addressed?
You have an answer?
The question was parking lots against the neighborhoods.
Right.
So, let me get to that last.
Okay.
I would definitely bring the corridor revitalization zoning text amendment back for a number of reasons. It was billed as an affordable housing initiative, and I'm not quite sure it's going to produce the amount of affordable housing we really need and want. So I bring it back. Secondly, I'd like to address new urbanism. People really do I like buildings up to the, close to the streets instead of parking lots. I like mixed use. I like going up a little bit instead of sprawling it out all over the place. But right now, we're trying to have it both ways. You see, a few years ago, this city spent a lot of money trying to get a form-based code in place. That's the new urbanism designs. And we couldn't do it because people didn't agree. With new urbanism and form-based code, there are no conditional uses allowed, no variances allowed. Everybody knows the rules and everybody follows them. Right now, we have a mixture of what we want from new urbanism, but we don't have all their rules in place to be pure about what we're doing. Parking lot, I'm sorry. A lot of people put parking lots. Do you want me to keep going on this or what?
We can get back to this.
Okay.
That's why I addressed it last.
Okay.
All right. I think the zoning that we passed in the corridors is a great idea. So no, I would not bring it back for that reason. What we've done is we've taken all the commercial properties that are along like 41 and Fruitville, our major corridors, and said, besides commercial, you have the option, if you rebuild your property, you can do mixed use. So, or you can just have residential. So you can have commercial and residential together. You can keep it just commercial, or you can do just residential along those corridors. And what we've said is, in order to, like over a 20, 30, maybe 40-year period, that is going to reshape those corridors, because when they rebuild, yes, they're going to be closer to the road with the parking lots in the back, but there's going to be a 6-foot right-of-way, an 8-foot sidewalk, and another 6 foot for planting. So it's not going to be just right up to the road. And the 70 feet is the maximum anybody could go. It's 5 stories, and a typical 5-story building is not necessarily that tall, but they didn't want things to come back. And as far as the parking lot in the back, that can be screening can solve that problem, and it would have to be screened from the neighborhoods, and much better than a whole sea of parking lots coming down these major corridors. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you support the city's neighborhood grant program? Why or why not? Eric, we'll start with you.
I do not. You know, the city gives away over $100,000 every year that could be going to affordable housing projects, to planting trees, to you know, help our economic development. That gave grants when people needed assistance during COVID. But instead, we give them to neighborhood associations, which are not HOAs, they're not condo associations, they have no regulatory authority, they were simply created. And the city gives them away, grants to have meetings and to do things which are then used as political arms to further agendas. So I've always been against it, I'll continue to be against it. I think we should, you know, it opened the floodgates to all sorts of problems.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have a totally different point of view on that. I've been involved in our community a long time and CCNA a long time. I've never once heard of one neighborhood association that used its neighborhood grant for political purposes. I've heard of newsletters, I've heard of signage, I've heard of Christmas parties, and planting. Here's the thing, neighborhood grants bring neighbors together to create a sense of community where you network, where you bond, where you create a synergism that is bigger than any one person or two can do. And guess what? You and the other neighborhoods hire people in the private sector, the neighboring landscaper, the sign maker, the caterer, to help you with your neighborhood grants. I'm all for it.
Thank you, Kathy. Liz?
Yeah, since I've been on the commission 9 years, I've never had a problem with the neighborhood grants. I've always thought they were kind of, a nice little thing for all the neighborhoods to be able to do. It's not a lot of money, really. You know, it's like maybe sometimes $1,500, maybe a couple of $1,000. But for that neighborhood, it's huge. You know, because it enables them to do something they wouldn't be able to do before. So I don't have a problem with the neighborhood grant.
Thank you, Liz. Ron?
Thank you. So, one of the things that makes Sarasota so special, and even when you hear this discussion, when we're talking about different topics, how do we relate to them? Well, we refer to, you know, Eric mentioned Rosemary District. We're right now in Arlington Park. I come from Laurel Park. Those aren't streets, those are neighborhoods. And the cities, the core, the plan for the city was the way we keep the small town community as we grow, as we flourish, and we will continue to grow, is through neighborhoods and keeping that community feeling. So the neighborhood grants, they're an essential part to it. Your picnic, that was a neighborhood grant. The potluck, neighborhood grant. Yes, the city should absolutely try and incentivize that type of community throughout our city.
Thank you, Ron. Okay,
Is that a joke?
Did everybody hear me? No? Okay. When was the last time you visited the Arlington Park neighborhood and why?
Well, I'm going to ask you, have you seen me walking your streets? I was here yesterday, I was here the day before, I was here the day before. I've talked to a lot of you. Other than canvassing, I've been to your neighborhood association meetings, every one, since I've been a candidate and a couple before. You're gonna get sick of me. That's it.
Thank you, Kathy. Liz?
I actually have a friend who lives in the Arlington Park neighborhood, so I was there at her house visiting her. So, and before the event today, I was driving around and taking a look at everything.
Thank you. Ron?
Thank you. So I, like Kathy, have canvassed all the streets in District 2 of Arlington Park, but a lot of you have seen me at the meetings, various meetings throughout the years. I've been through countless picnics at Arlington Park. And just a shout out to Kelly Brown. There's been every meeting where she can shush the crowd at some point.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. So when I was in high school here, we used to always play basketball in Arlington Park. So I have this history. I have friends that live here. I've been to the community events. I thought you were going to bring a guitar today as well. And last time I was here this weekend visiting friends, and also I was canvassing. You may have seen some of us with the shirts. We all had the same Arroyo campaign shirts, but even after we were done canvassing, I stuck around and then was by Hillview, and then we went over to Origins and had some amazing pizza and wings.
Thank you, Eric. We have a few minutes left, so.
Unless somebody has one short question, I'd like to wrap up. Is there anybody from the audience that has a question to ask? Sure.
My name is Preston, and me and my wife, we've been living in the neighborhood here for about 6 months. She's originally from Sarasota, I'm originally from Tampa. We love it here, it's a beautiful neighborhood. We're so happy to be here and plan on being here for a long time. I have a question. It's regarding the tennis courts here in Arlington Park. So I came to this meeting just to kind of network with some people tonight and just meet some neighbors and everything. And so I'm excited to meet a lot of you after the meeting. But the tennis courts here in Arlington Park, I talked to one of the Parks and Rec people about it, because in Gillespie Park, they have a dual use setup for the park. So I don't know if any of you folks here play pickleball. Me and my wife would love pickleball.
They do pickleball indoors here.
Yes, I'm aware. Yeah, you have to pay though. You have to pay though. So in Gillespie Park, you don't have to pay to go play pickleball or tennis there. It's open to anybody. It's city park. And then, but there's tennis courts here in Arlington Park. What they did in Gillespie Park is they painted just lines on one of the tennis courts out of the full. What's that? Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I understand that. I know. Yeah. So what my question was, was curious to know who would be able to help out with getting the same lines that they did in Gillespie, just on maybe one of the tennis courts. I know this lady over here, she mentioned the noise thing, but I'm talking about not longer hours or anything past what the tennis players are already playing, just being able to play pickleball, have the lines painted, and then have some of those temporary nets like over in Gillespie Park. Just curious to know if anybody would be willing to help with that.
Well, I have the mic. I'm not a good painter.
We can do this quickly.
Yeah. I would contact your city commissioners and start rustling the bushes so that they get sick and tired of hearing from you and they make it get done.
We can work out
You know, painting has always been one of the primary issues of the campaign. Kidding. Talk to Jerry Fogle. I'll get you the contact information. He's our Parks and Recreation Director.
Yeah, nothing to add there.
Yeah, so actually, to talk with Jerry Fogel, but I think, you know, as some of the neighbors have said, it could be an issue. I know Bird Key Yacht Club tried to get pickleball courts there several years ago, and I can't tell you how much pushback there was about, so they never ever got to have pickleball courts. So I'm surprised Gillespie Park has them. So. And let me just say, yeah, anytime you want anything done, be sure and contact your commissioner and start there, and you know, we'll help guide you through that process. Okay?
I just want to let you guys know that Jerry Fogel is the director of the Parks and Rec Department, so if you guys don't know. And he will always respond to you. He's an amazing man. We have a great city staff. I want to thank Liz, Ron, Eric, Kathy for joining us. It's not easy to put yourself out there like this, so we all appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. And thank you for joining us at our Arlington Park Neighborhood Candidate Forum.